Hey guys, today's tutorial is how to paint this field of sunflowers. I painted this in my Moleskine sketchbook a little while ago, but I wanted to turn the footage that I had into a proper tutorial, so here it is. I will be linking all the materials that I used in the description box below, so you can check that out for everything that I used. So to start off, I have just lightly marked in some lines to show where the sky meets the field of sunflowers, and now I'm going to start painting in the sky. So for the colors that I'm using, I am using Permanent Yellow Deep, and I've mixed it with some white, and I start to paint in the sky. So I paint in a little bit dark at the top, and then it gets a little bit lighter, and because I want to leave the space where I've painted the clouds in white, so I make sure to leave that area white and to paint around it, and then it transitions to a warmer orange below. For the clouds, I'm keeping it nice and simple, so I've just mixed a greyish purple mixture using ultramarine blue mixed with spectrum red and lots of white, and to make it more of a greyish colour you can also add in a tiny bit of black just to make it a bit more grey, and then I just fill in the clouds, and to give it some texture I make sure that I use some white paint to lighten it and just paint around the edges of it. And also for the other clouds I'm just using a darker mixture, and then I'm highlighting it with some of the Permanent Yellow Deep mixture, so I'm keeping it nice and simple and I'm not making it too intricate. Now for the sunflowers, I start by painting in the centers of the flowers, so I'm using a dark brown mixture, so you can just use burnt umber mixed with black, and I just start to paint in the centers. So I've already lightly marked in where they go. You probably can't see it too clearly on the camera, but I have lightly marked in with a pencil where these centers are, so I'm just filling those in first. I'm starting with this part first just because I want to gauge where the flowers go, so I just want to get a rough idea of the composition of this painting, and after I've put in a few of them I decided that I would go back and start to build the layers up from the top. So I'm using Permanent Yellow Deep again, and I want it to be a little bit darker than the sky color, so to do that you can add in a little bit of spectrum red so it creates more of an warm orangey color, and I'm just filling in that back area there. And then afterwards I'm going to start putting in the details, so I want to indicate lots of really small and distant flowers, and it's quite a tedious process. I'm just using my brush to put on individual dots to indicate where the flowers are, so I'm using mixtures of brown paint and also green and yellow, so I'm trying to indicate that those are the flowers, so that the brown is showing the center of the flowers, and then I use some yellow paint just to paint in a bit of the flower petals, and then I put in a little bit of green just to indicate some of the leaves there, and I just start to slowly build it up from there. And to build it up I make sure that I paint in the centers to be larger and larger, so it looks like they are coming towards the foreground of the image. So overall I would say that this painting is just a repetition of the same thing. It's more of a tedious process, but the end result looks quite nice when you have built up all the layers. And so now I'm just painting in the sunflowers that are sort of in the distance and making sure that they are getting larger and larger as they move down the page. I've skipped a little bit of the footage here, but I will explain how I'm painting in these sunflowers in the next little bit, but for now I'm just filling in the areas in between by using some green paint to indicate the leaves of the flowers. And then now to show you how I actually build up each individual sunflower. So I start with a warm orange, so I use permanent yellow deep mixed with a little bit of spectrum red, so it's a nice earthy warm orange color, and I just start to build in the layer that's around the center of the flower first. So I'm indicating where the petals are. Then after I've gone around to each of them, I want to mix an even darker color, so an even warmer reddish orange color, and just fill in the area that's just around the center of the flower just to build it up a bit more. So I want it to go from a warm orange red color to a slightly lighter color, and I'll keep building the petals outwards like that. And the reason why it's a little bit dark in the center is because there is more of a shadow on those petals as they are more hidden from the sunlight. So you want to start by building up a warmer, darker color in the center and slowly build out to be lighter on the edges of the flower petals. Once I'm happy with that, then I go in with a lighter yellow color and I start to build in more petals around it. So you can use just yellow paint for this and add white. You probably won't need any red in the mixture now because the petals are mostly just yellow, and you can paint them in any way you like. So for one of the flowers, I try to indicate that the sunflower was facing down, so I painted some of the petals over the top of the center of the flower, but otherwise you can just make them all look like they're facing outwards, so you can just paint the petals around the edges. So as you can see, this process just repeats itself, and then I fill in the areas in between the flowers with green to show where the petals are. Now the reason why I decided to paint in the flowers first and then paint in the leaves second is because I find that when I'm using gouache, usually it's harder to get brighter light colors once you've laid down a darker color underneath. So if I had laid down the green first, then it would have been harder to get that bright yellow color of the petals of the sunflowers to really pop, because with gouache it's hard to not pick up layers underneath when you're putting more layers on top. So if I had put the green color down first, then I try to go in with yellow on top, it's likely that the colors would get a little bit muddy and I won't be able to get that bright yellow pop. So that's why I decided to do it this way. It's a little bit more tedious because now I have to fill in the green in between each of the flower petals, but I wanted to do it this way so I could achieve a brighter color. And once I go in and fill in all the green in between the flowers, I will also come back later and just fix up the petals around the edges as well, so you don't have to make it perfect, so you can always come back and fix up any areas where you feel like you've covered up too much of the flower petals. So having said that, if you are using acrylic paint to do this painting, then maybe you could actually paint in the background first. So you could lay in the green first and then paint the sunflowers on top. That'll probably save you a little bit more time and effort. So if I had done this with acrylic paint, I probably would have painted this in a different order, but because I'm using it with gouache, then I decided to do it this way. And same if you're using acrylic gouache, which has similar properties to acrylic paint, you could also probably do it the other way around, where you lay in the green first and then paint the sunflowers on top. Now that I've painted in all the leaves, I'm just going back and just fixing up the sunflowers. So I'm picking up yellow paint and I'm just going over some of the petals just so that the color is sitting on top of the green. So I'm really just touching everything up right now, and the painting is pretty much done. So you can just touch up any areas that you feel like needs to be improved. And that is it for this tutorial. If you guys have any questions, just leave it in the comments below and I will answer them. I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.